Before I jump into my setup, I want to spend a bit of time about my build philosophy. Understanding this will help explain how my C10 has been modified. It's a build strategy that I use for my 110 scale rigs, and it definitely applies to the SCX24 as well. Simply put, I focus on the following. Welcome to Big Song Hobbies. After the recent SCX24 videos, can SCX24 climb and rock crawl, and should you run with or without foams? Quite a few of you have been asking what is under my SCX24. How is it set up? So today, I'd like to show you my current setup. It is still going through changes, but I think it is very close to where I want it to be, other than going on some diet soon and adding the Trio 14% overdrive. Before I jump into my setup, I want to spend a bit of time about my build philosophy. Understanding this will help explain how my C10 has been modified. It's a build strategy that I use for my 110 scale rigs, and it definitely applies to the SCX24 as well. Simply put, I focus on the following. Lower center of gravity. Get the weight distribution to 60% front and 40% rear. Add a minimum amount of weight necessary to get to the 60-40. If you have to add weight, add it down low, at or below the axle. Choose stationary or fixed weight over rotational mass. And get better tires for your truck, and if I have to add one more, replace the stock servo. Next, I want to take a moment to talk about the stock setup, as that is the baseline. It really helps to know where you're starting from to figure out what needs to be done to it. So here's the specification on a stock C10. It weighs 230 grams and it has 52% front and 48% rear weight distribution. Please note, the weights and the weight distribution will be slightly different for different versions of SCX24, so keep that in mind. Let me start from the outside and then we'll take a look under the body. The first thing that I want to point out are the wheels and tires. I'm using the RC 4-wheel drive stem steel beadlock wheels and RC 4-wheel drive Rock Ripper tires. For C10, I would highly recommend the Rock Ripper tires. It's much softer and grip is so much better than the stock. The size is very similar to the stock tires. It's a little shorter but a bit wider, which helps with the traction. The stem steel beadlock wheels have been great, but it adds quite a bit of weight. Together with the Rock Rippers, it added 44 grams to the overall weight, which is 19% additional weight to the rig, 11 grams to the each wheels. It helps with the CG, but the weight penalty is pretty severe. So I'm in the process of reducing the weight by going with the 3D printed wheels by MT Hobbies. I'll have a separate review on it when it arrives. The next thing you'll notice is that I don't have front nor rear bumpers. They were removed to help with the approach and departure angles, but it also saved a bit of weight. I also have the DSM Off-Road's 124 recovery system installed. The weight was barely noticeable, and I'm finding that I'm using it much more than I had expected. For $8 using the BSH24 20% discount code is definitely a no-brainer. I have also trimmed the body very slightly, especially at the front, to ensure the tire clearance. Now let's look under the body. I'll start with the most obvious. I'm using TGH24X performance chassis. It's made of a small weave carbon fiber, which weighs 5 grams versus the 16 gram that the stem steel chassis weighs, a savings of 11 grams. It has 5-degree angle skid, which help with sliding over obstacles. It has incorporated rear shock hoops with multiple mounting locations. But I wanted a bit more angle, so I used leftover parts from the Emax servo for more forward mounting position. The next thing you'll notice that I have swapped the location of the battery and the ESC. The stock battery weighs 22.9 grams, while the ESC weighs only 12.2 grams. Since the battery weighs 10.7 grams more than the ESC, by swapping them around helps with the weight distribution. Also, I removed the rear battery tray, saving a bit more weight, and I used two-sided tape to mount the ESC to the chassis. I also 3D-printed LCG battery tray that lowers the battery position as close to the chassis as possible. One thing that I had to do was to extend the battery wire, but I have a separate video on that, and I'll post a link to the video at the top right corner. Even after all these months, I'm still using the stock motor. I have a barrage motor that I had ordered, but I haven't upgraded to it yet. The other big change that you'll notice is that instead of the stock links, I'm actually using a 3D printed high clearance links that my friend gave me, but it makes a huge difference in climbing over stuff. Definitely recommended. If you look at the rear upper links, I widened the position of the rear upper links to help with the roll center using link pivot balls. This mod don't have a conclusive enough data, but it does seem to help with the side hilling. As for shocks, I'm still using the stock shocks that has been modified. I added a 3mm of a preload using O-rings. I also added a bit of green slime, which has helped tremendously with the dampening. It's not a pogo stick anymore. Also, you'll notice that I have the shocks mounted upside down. I set up this way following my 1/10 scale, where it helps to lower the CG. But the weight difference is so small, they probably doesn't matter on the SCX24. But there was an unexpected benefit. Since the shock body with green slime is down low, it seems to really help with any leakage. Definitely a side benefit. One thing, I have the top of the shocks mounted above the chassis and angled inward. I'll probably do a separate video why I have set it up this way. Let me know if you're interested. I am still using the stock steering links. I used O-rings to remove the slop, and they've been working great. Now let's take a look at a few things that I have upgraded that helped with the weight distribution. First is the servo. I upgraded to an Emax digital servo using stock servo mount. So far it has been working flawlessly and I highly recommend it. There are much better servo out there, but for what I do, it seems to work well enough. Additionally, it added a few grams to the front, helping with the weight distribution. At this stage of the modification, I had calculated that I needed some additional weight to the front to try to get to the 60-40 weight distribution. I opted to add HR breast knuckles, which added 8 grams each, total of 16 grams, and a HR breast diff cover to front, which added 9 grams for a total of 25 grams. I chose them as they add stationary weight, and they are right at Axial, helping to keep the center of gravity low. By adding those brass items, I got to 59 and 41% weight distribution, a bit shy of the ideal 60-40. My plan was to get to 60-40 by decasing the ESC case, which will save 5 grams from the rear and thus getting to the 60-40. I haven't done it yet as my C10 has been doing quite well, and it's a bit of a challenge to mount the ESC without the casing. So that's my current setup for the C10. It's at 59% front and 41% rear weight distribution, weighing at 292 grams with a bigger 450 milliamp battery, which is 62 grams over the stock. Most of the weight gain came from the wheels, so I'm planning to take a bit of diet and go with the 3D printed wheels, which should save me roughly 25 grams or so, bringing the overall weight down to somewhere near the 265 grams. Hope you found the information useful, and don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching Big Hobbies.